Hey, what's up everybody? Hope you're doing well today. We are going to finish our journey through Chop Wood, Carry Water today. We got 3 quick chapters to read, about 12 pages. So we're going to finish that with some thoughts. My name is Mike Dokter. I am the head coach of the high school women's basketball team out of the house in Muskegon, Michigan, playing with the Michigan Basketball Academy. And this is a book that we went through last year. These videos are for the new teammates who have not gotten a chance to read it so they can catch up for the book we're going to read this year, which is the sequel to this book called Pound the Stone. So Chop Wood, Carry Water by Joshua Medcalf. We're going to read chapters 31, 32, and 33 today with some thoughts on all of them. So chapter 31, Climbing Mountains. One night after John had finished his chores at the shooting range, he was walking back to the dining hall when Akira found him, waving him down. "John, could you come over here, please? I have a gift for you." John walked over to him, curious. As he approached, Akira handed him a small gift box wrapped in rice paper and string. "I've been meaning to give this to you for a while now. It's something very valuable, and I very much want you to have before you leave this place." Excited, John untied the string and, smiling wide, opened the box. Suddenly, his smile wavered as he saw what was inside. A simple gray stone, totally unremarkable. "It's a stone?" "Yes, but not just any stone. That stone is from the top of Mount Fuji, the first mountain I ever climbed. I want you to have it as a reminder to always climb the mountains in your own life. Climbing mountains is difficult, costly, and dangerous. And if offered the choice between difficult, costly, and dangerous, or safe, cheap, and comfortable, most people will choose the second option. But if you want to become great, you must consistently be willing to do what others will not." Mariki is a Greek word that means doing something with passion and soul. How many people do you see engaged in mariki at work, in school, or in sports? The majority of people are disengaged and just going through the motions. They have given away their power and believe their development and opportunities are up to everyone else. That's a lie. You are more powerful than you realize, but you are going to have to go against the grain, and a lot of people are going to be angry and want you to sit down, shut up, and do what you're told. But if you want to be great, you must be willing to boldly step away from the crowd and take personal responsibility for your own journey and development, like this. Akira leaned to the ground and used a stick to sketch the following picture, as you can see there. Look at these 2 circles. Imagine that the dots in each of these circles represent people. How replaceable are any of the people in the circle on the left, the one with all the dots? The circle on the left, that's the one without all the dots. Virtually impossible, right? Now, how about the circle on the right? How replaceable are each of those people? Highly replaceable, right? If you're learning and doing what tens of thousands of other people are learning and doing, then even if you are at your very best, you're still highly replaceable. When you go on a self-directed journey, you're learning things and developing skills that make you highly irreplaceable. Even if you aren't the best, it's still very hard to replace you. Mediocrity is replaceable, greatness is not. Most people will never do what greatness requires. Most people will never climb their mountains. But John, we only get one lifetime. Maybe I'm crazy, but I believe the pain of regret lasts much longer than the pain of temporary failure or setbacks. I'm not promised tomorrow, and I want my life to reflect that way in the way I live today. I wish more people would live that way. I wish more people would just stop pretending that they get to live twice. John, the point of life is not to arrive safely at death. Don't believe that lie. On your deathbed, you will regret the mountains you chose not to climb. You won't regret the bumps, bruises, broken bones, and scars you got from the ones you did climb. Of course, there will always be valid, legitimate, and responsible excuses not to climb mountains, but you must choose to climb them anyway. Mountains were meant to be climbed. Sure, it will inevitably take longer and require more effort than you ever realized on the outset, but you will also be infinitely more worthwhile, not because of what you will achieve, but because of who you will become through the process. When given the option to stay comfortable where you are or risk the cold, injury, and more, most people choose comfortable. I hope that instead you choose to do what others won't, and eventually you will be able to do what others can't. I hope that every opportunity you get to choose to climb the mountains and chase the lions in your life. Cool chapter. 2 things, right? First of all, things are going to be hard and difficult. We've talked about that a lot throughout the course of these videos, and that's okay. It's meant to be hard and difficult. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Secondly, you can choose to be comfortable or you can choose to get better. Those are the two options. If you choose to be comfortable, you're going to have oftentimes the results that everybody else has. Yeah, you might make the team, but are you going to play? If you choose not to be comfortable, if you choose to be comfortable in practice, you're going to show that you're going to be comfortable in a game. If you practice comfortably, you will perform comfortably. You need to practice at what we call game speed. Everybody's heard that term before. Game speed and game effort mean that you're putting in the same amount of effort in practice as you are in the game. It's extraordinarily important. So you can choose to be comfortable or you can choose to get better. Those are the two options. And you'll hear me say that quite often. And you'll also hear me say, where would you rather be uncomfortable, here or out in a game? And oftentimes, the better answer is to be uncomfortable here and go through that pain here so that when we are in the game, we can perform at the highest and best of our ability. All right, chapter 2, the map is not the territory. During the last weeks in the community, John tried his best to soak everything in, knowing that he would be leaving soon. One sunny afternoon, he and Akira went for a long hike along one of their favorite routes up to the surrounding hills. They had done this hike many times, but they took it extra slow this time, wanting to soak up every second. As they rested at the top of the hill, John looked out over the view, shaking his head in amazement. It's so different from when I first arrived. Those trees weren't even as high as my shoulders, he pointed to a cluster of soaring maples. And the big oak that blocked our view the first few years is gone now. We can see the whole new ridge. Akira nodded. Indeed, much has changed, and you've only just been here for 10 years. Imagine how I feel. They laughed as Akira continued. It reminds me of a truth you'll soon find useful as you move on from here. You will enter a world where society, the education system, media, marketing departments, big business, parents, and friends will do their best to give you a map by which to live your life. This map points to how things are done, what the rules are, and where the boundaries exist. But the problem is the world has changed and continues to change more in a year than it did in a generation not so long ago. The map is not the territory anymore. It's outdated and somewhat useless map. Really? How so? Akira paused for a second, lost in thought. Then he looked into John's eyes intensely. Let me tell you a parable. A long time ago, all the farms in the world were owned by a very few powerful men. Only the elites or knighted, talented ones were able to rent the land and use the tools and were allowed to reap the profits, while the rest of the world worked for the land and for generations, believing that they didn't have any talent, the money, or the relationships to farm on their own. Thus, they believed they were entirely dependent on the elites who owned the farms. So all day they worked fields and they didn't own, and every night the elites gave them addictive things to numb the pain from squashing their passion and not pursuing what set their souls on fire. The elites shamed everyone who stepped out and tried to do something on their own, ruthlessly maintaining their system that ensured the status quo. But over time, everything started to change. The tools that used to cost tens of thousands of dollars began to improve until they were available for free or pennies on the dollar. The land that once rented out for millions of dollars eventually became available for free or pennies on the dollar. When a small band of brave workers figured this out, they ran to tell all their friends who had jobs at farms or were standing in line to get them. They thought everyone would be grateful to hear the news, but instead no one believed them. They told them they were crazy and chased them away with pitchforks. Only a few people were brave enough, desperate enough, or had never been able to fit into a job on the farms followed them back. And while those few brave workers still struggled to understand the rejection of their friends, they decided to just put their heads down and do the work anyway. The first couple years on their own were incredibly hard, sometimes so hard that they wondered if they'd made a terrible mistake. Life with their friends back on the farm with the illusion of safety and security started to look like a good idea. Sure, they hated the work and they didn't own the farms, but at least they had some company and a steady paycheck. But they kept working faithfully and slowly and began to make breakthroughs. The breakthroughs became bigger and more frequent until finally, after 5 years of working the land on their own, they started to really reap the benefits. They now had more time, resources, satisfaction from doing the things they loved on their own schedule. They even reaped enough to start multiplying their farms and starting new ones. After 10 long years, they became so successful and independent that their old friends still stuck working on farms they didn't own barely recognized them. They couldn't figure out how these brave workers who they'd known all their lives and grown up with could have possibly transformed like this. But when the brave workers told them how they'd simply put in the work and reminded them that the farmland and tools were sitting right there, available for anyone to use, they couldn't believe it. So instead, they just called these brave farmers talented or chosen, writing off their hard work. I don't quite know if I follow the parable, Akira-sensei, said a puzzled John. What it means, John, is that the world has dramatically shifted, and the gatekeepers who used to decide who got power and opportunity have lost much of their power they used to wield. Attention and trust are the two most valuable resources in the world, and for a long time, only people who had real estate on Main Street, an ad on a few TV channels, or a voice in one of the few newspapers could control those resources. But today, with tools like websites, blogs, online stores, YouTube, Instagram, and self-publishing, attention and trust can be built by anyone willing to put in the work. The things that used to be virtually impossible to build and create on your own can now be done with just a few clicks. But still, very few people have woken up to that truth, because doing so requires getting uncomfortable and breaking away from much of what they've known their entire lives. They would rather have the perceived illusion of safety with a consistent job, even if it's one they're completely disengaged in doing, and doing things that they don't believe in, all while complaining about how unfairly they've been treated, despite being able to quit at any time. They've been so brainwashed by a system that encourages disengagement, passing tests, and buying stuff you don't need to impress people you don't like, that they can't even see the reality, that all the fields are all around them, just waiting to be farmed. Today, you don't need to work on someone else's farm. Instead, you can farm the whole world by doing things you are incredibly passionate about. All it costs is your full engagement and the sweat equity of doing tremendously hard work for years in a row with very little return on your investment. It requires going out on your own and studying the territory from those who successfully navigated the new world we live in. It requires persistently and consistently experimenting with the strategies and wisdom you learn from them. Yes, it will take longer than the instant gratification of a normal job that will give you the table scraps at best, but eventually the harvest can be yours. But very few people understand this, because they have been studying old maps their whole lives instead of waking up and exploring the rapidly changing territory on their own. John was amazed. Wow, I guess I never thought of it like that. John, this is why it's so important to understand that the map is not the territory. Akira gestured to the beautiful vista in front of them. Just like this view has changed, so has the world. Most people would rather trust their old, outdated map than do the hard work of exploring the territory on their own, finding out what it is really all about and what is actually possible. John, one large study found that 74% of people will knowingly give the wrong answer just not to stand out and be ostracized by the group. This is why most people wander around cluelessly, stumbling into roadblocks and ending up in the wrong destinations, wondering why no one told them that the territory is entirely different from the maps they memorized. You have been lied to and told that if you ace a test on a map, you will be prepared for the territory. But who would you rather have as a guide? The person who studied the old map for 25 years, or the person who has studied and survived in the territory for 25 years? The map is easy. Anyone can read a map. Navigating the territory is the hard part. Now, I've done my best to equip you with a toolbox to help you navigate the territory alone and map it for yourself. A compass, an integral one, built on principles and the timeless wisdom of chop wood, carry water. You have learned the value of beating on your craft, being bold and courageous, always asking, who says? And you have truly fallen in love with the process of becoming great. As you go out into the world, you will need these tools more than ever to find your way. I don't know how I could ever have done it without you, Akira. I'm eternally grateful. He grabbed his wise old teacher and gave him a big bear hug. The map is not the territory. All right, I'm about to piss off everybody in education. I'm in education. Some of you may know I work with Davenport University. I got a couple degrees from there. I'm super grateful for them. They've helped me in my career, and I strongly encourage you all to go to college. But what you need to know is that the map is not the territory. It's changing unbelievably quick. And if you don't keep up, you're going to be in a situation where 20 years from now, you're going to look back and you're going to be irritated with everybody who told you at the age of 17 to decide what you wanted to do for the rest of your life. That is not my favorite advice. I don't like it. I don't try to press it on people. I don't think people should press it on you. You are going to go through a journey, and what's more important is who you become and what you learn in the midst of that journey. You need to understand that the map is important, but in most cases it's outdated. AI everything that we have at our fingertips, unbelievable knowledge that we have at our fingertips, and the ability to fake that intelligence is also out there. If you've been on X or if you've been on Instagram, all you'll see is a whole bunch of fakeness, and you'll see people who claim to know the answers. I don't know all the answers, I'll tell you that right now. I've figured some stuff out by listening to people who are much smarter than I am, and it's helped me personally, but you need to figure out what that means for you. There are timeless truths, there are absolutes, there are exclusivities. Those exist in our world. If we don't, what's the point of even living or buying into a system? But you need to take that and mold that around your journey, what's important to you. All right, we're at 15 minutes. I'm going to read the last chapter here. A New Name, chapter 33, the last chapter of Chop Wood, Carry Water. We'll give a few thoughts and then wrap up. Thank you so much for going along with me on this journey. This was super fun to put together for you all. Chapter 33, a new name. By the time he neared graduation, John had become one of the most accurate archers in his class. He was able to pack the bullseye with a cluster of 3 arrows, even at a far range. Finally, after 10 years of training, John had become a samurai archer. After his graduation ceremony and before he left the community to travel back home, John and Akira took one last long walk through the grounds. They passed many of their favorite locations, spots that John had become to love during his time there. As they walked, Akira told him how proud he was, saying, "You know that excellence is within your reach, John? It is accomplished through deliberate actions, ordinary in themselves, performed consistently and carefully, made into habits, compounded together, and added up over time. I learned this from a coach in your country who has won 21 national championships." That's Anson Doors. He said that greatness is a bunch of small things done well, added up over time, that most people think are too small to matter. As a matter of fact, I have one final story for you to demonstrate the power of being deliberate and consistent with the small things. John let out a giant belly laugh. Of course you do. I can't help it, laughed Akira. So in 2004, 9 Michigan hospitals decided to experiment with a new procedure. And in just a few months, it reduced the infection rates by 66%. By a year and a half, over 1,500 lives and $75 million had been saved. This is a true story, by the way. Wow, that's incredible. What was the innovative new technology or drug, John asked. Nope, it wasn't. It was a simple, Wow, that's incredible. Was it a new or innovative technology or drug, asked John. Nope, it was a simple checklist of 5 items. You could say it was their chop wood and carry water. The item at the top of the list was wash your hands. No way. We figured out that washing our hands could prevent disease and save lives in the middle of the 1800s, John practically yelled at Akira. Exactly, John. Society will always push us towards what is new and innovative and the, quote, next big thing. But immense power and potential is harnessed through focusing on doing the simple and small things with incredible consistency and discipline. Don't fall for the traps or the counterfeits. Never forget what you have learned here. Focus on the process. Trust the process. Tears and emotions started to flood over John as he barely got out. I'm going to miss all those stories, and I know that, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do life without you, Akira. John, you have learned to fall in love with the process of becoming great and take the rough side of the mountain and let your skills and characters be refined by the day in, day out of process of chopping wood and carrying water. I'm so proud of you. You will flourish in the world. You have been trained well. John couldn't stop smiling as the sensei's words resonated with him. This was one of the most satisfying days of his life, not because of what he had achieved, but because of the man he had become in the process. Akira wrapped him in a big hug and said, "Before you leave, there is one more thing we must do. I want you to close your eyes, put your hand on your heart, and take some deep breaths. I want you to think about all the names you have gone by in your life. Each of those names probably represents a part of our personality. I want you to think which of these names represents the strongest, kindest, and most authentic version of you." John obeyed, closing his eyes and taking a deep breath. Finally, he opened them, and with resolution, "Jonathan does. Growing up, my family always called me Johnny. That's a very playful side of my personality, but also a very immature version of myself. Eventually, people started calling me John, but that side of my personality is kind of soft and a pushover. I think Jonathan is the best version of myself." Akira smiled and said, "Then from now on, tell people your name is Jonathan, and do not allow them to call you by anything else. Names are very powerful. In the Bible, many people experience name changes, and those name changes were very pivotal moments in their lives. You have transformed through your time here, Jonathan, and you need to have a new name that represents that transformation. I'm excited for all the journeys you will go through here, and I trust you will impact many people's lives in the process. I am honored to have known you." Jonathan nodded, his heart filled with so many emotions. He embraced Akira one last time. Eventually, he let go, grabbing his bags to leave. "Akira-sensei, I'll never forget my time here. Thank you for teaching me how to chop wood, carry water, and fall in love with the process of becoming great." "My blessing, Jonathan," said Akira with a big smile and a few tears. "You are more powerful than you'll ever realize. Act accordingly." The end. All right. Love this book. I love this book. You are more powerful than you will ever realize. And it's not because of what you achieve. It's not because of what you accomplish. It's because of the things that you can learn in that process that you can pass on to other people. I promise you from the bottom of my heart that I am so much more concerned with you becoming a good human being than I am with how many points you score, how many assists you make, how many rebounds you get, how many steals you get, all of that other nonsense that only matters in the moment. It only matters right then. It's not going to matter 20 years from now. It's not going to matter when you're a parent of your own. That stuff isn't going to matter. What's going to matter is who you become as a young individual and whose you believe you are. That's what's going to matter. And I'm so grateful to have been able to read this with you and go through this with you. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you're just watching this randomly, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. You can click the link below and you can watch all the other chapters on the playlist, House Basketball. That completes our journey through Chop Wood, Carry Water by Joshua Medcalf. My name is Mike Dokter. I'm very excited to read the sequel with you, which is Pound the Stone, which is the second half of our mantra. So I hope that you learned a lot through this series. I hope that we can take it forward together. If you ever have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm grateful to have done this for you. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye now.